Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Yang Zhou, and I'm a research fellow with the Higher Education Center at the Public Policy Institute of California. Welcome to our virtual program today, featuring the findings from PPIC's report, College Enrollment under California's New Financial Aid Application Policy. The report, technical appendix, policy brief, and slides from today's briefing can be found on our website at ppic.org. This research and today's event are supported with funding from the Gates Foundation and the Evelyn and Walter Haas Jr. Fund. We would like to thank them for their generous support. I would also like to thank my co-authors, Kevin Cook and Selena Gomez. This research would not have been possible without their excellent contributions. For today's program, I will present some of the key findings from the report and then turn to questions from our virtual audience. If you have a question, please send it along with your name and organization to the email address on the screen, ppiceventquestions@gmail.com. As a reminder, PPIC is a public charity and does not take or support positions on any ballot measure or legislation, nor does it support, endorse, or oppose any political parties or candidates for public office. And now, on to the presentation. California faces growing demand for college-educated workers, while college affordability remains a top concern for students and parents in the state. According to a recent PPIC survey, about 7 in 10 parents want their children to earn at least a bachelor's degree. However, a similar share worry about how they will pay for it. Expanding access to financial aid is essential for both college affordability and student success. Research shows that financial aid not only increases college enrollment and persistence, but also supports degree completion and helps students graduate faster, keeping higher education a pathway to economic mobility for students from all backgrounds. Despite its importance, many California students miss out on financial aid opportunities. Historically, only about half of the state's high school seniors completed a financial aid application, which is a key step for accessing financial aid and making informed college decisions. Recognizing this gap, California recently implemented a universal financial aid application policy. Starting with the class of 2022 to 23, the policy requires school districts to ensure that every high school senior either completes a financial aid application or formally opts out. PPIC published our first report on this policy last year and found encouraging results. Completions of both FAFSA and CADA have increased following the policy. FAFSA provides access to federal, state, and institutional aid, such as the Pell Grant and the Cal Grant. And CADA provides state and local aid for eligible and documented students, mixed status students, meaning those with one parent who is a citizen and other who is not, and other non-citizen students. Importantly, we found that the largest gains were among student groups historically underrepresented in higher education. Building on the findings from our first report, this second report examines how college enrollment and access to financial aid changed during the first year of policy's implementation. We matched data from the California Student Aid Commission, which tracks students' financial aid applications and awards, with data from the National Student Clearinghouse, which allows us to examine students' college enrollment nationwide. First, we confirmed the findings from our first report. FAFSA completions rose sharply following the policy. This figure shows the number and share of high school seniors who completed the FAFSA by June 30th of their graduating year, broken down by graduating cohort. The share rose from 52% to 62% in the first year of policy's implementation, representing nearly 42,000 additional applicants. Looking further back, we see that FAFSA completion rates had been rising before the COVID-19 pandemic, then declined after the pandemic began. In 2022 to 23, graduating seniors had a completion rate 5 percentage points higher than the pre-pandemic rate of 57% in 2019 to 20. Along with higher FAFSA completion, we also found that a larger share of high school seniors became eligible for financial aid. In the first year of the policy, Pell Grant eligibility rose by 7 percentage points, and Pell Grant awards increased by 4 percentage points. With more students completing the FAFSA and qualifying for aid, we next examine whether college enrollment also increased. We matched the data for 3 high school graduating cohorts. The class of 2017 to 18 represents the pre-COVID baseline, as the state's college-going rate peaked in 2017 to 18 and then declined after the onset of the pandemic. The class of 2021 to 22 represents the cohort immediately before the policy, and the class of 2022 to 23 is the first cohort under the policy. The figure shows the number and share of seniors who enrolled in college within a year after high school in the 3 cohorts. In the first year under the policy, the college-going rate increased by 3 percentage points from the previous year, returning to its pre-COVID level. While this overall increase in college enrollment did coincide with the first year of the policy, other factors, such as the post-COVID recovery, may have also contributed. However, when we compared high school's changes in college-going rates with their pre-policy FAFSA completion rates in 2021 to 22, we found that schools with lower baseline FAFSA completion rates saw larger increases in college-going rates than schools with higher baseline rates. Since schools with lower baseline completion rates had more potential room for improvement by the policy, these patterns suggest that the policy could be a contributing factor in this overall increase in college enrollment. We leverage this pattern in a causal framework to quantify the effect. Our estimates indicate that the policy contributed to a 0.3 percentage point increase in the statewide college-going rate, equivalent to an estimated 1,500 additional students enrolling in college. While this increase is modest, it is statistically significant after controlling for a range of other potential factors and measured in just the first year of implementation, indicating that the policy had a real positive impact on college enrollment. In addition, the number of students enrolling in college with a completed FAFSA, thereby gaining access to financial aid, increased on a larger scale following the policy. As the figure shows, the share of high school seniors who completed the FAFSA by June 30th of their graduating year and then went on to enroll in college within a year after high school grew by 6 percentage points in the first year of the policy. The 2022 to 23 rate even exceeds the pre-COVID level observed in the class of 2017 to 18. This highlights an important aspect of the policy. It not only increases overall college enrollment, but also supports more students gaining access to financial aid upon enrollment. This expanded access to financial aid is also reflected in the higher share of college enrollees who became eligible for the Pell Grant or received a Pell Grant following the policy. Among high school seniors who enrolled in college within a year after graduation, the share eligible for the Pell Grant rose by 6 percentage points, and the share of in-state college enrollees who received a Pell Grant increased by 2 percentage points in the first year of the policy. Furthermore, we found that the gains in FAFSA completion and college enrollment were broadly distributed across counties. This map shows the change in the share of high school seniors who enrolled in college with a completed FAFSA in the first year of policy's implementation by county. only 8 counties saw declines of more than 1 percentage point, shown in red on the map. 2 counties showed minimal change, marked in yellow, while the remaining 47 counties experienced improvements of more than 1 percentage point, shown in green. Next, we look at how college enrollment and aid access changed across student groups following the policy. This figure shows the percent increase in the number of students enrolled in college with a completed FAFSA from the class of 2022 to the class of 2023 by expected family contribution, or EFC. EFC is a federal measure of a student's ability to pay for college. We use EFC as a proxy for financial need, with lower values indicating lower income backgrounds. Students with an EFC of 0 are expected to have no family resources to contribute toward the college cost, and we refer to them as students with the greatest financial need. As the figure shows, after the first year of the policy, students with the greatest financial need experienced the largest increase in college enrollment with a completed FAFSA. We also found that first-generation students for whom neither parent has a college degree and who are often underrepresented in higher education showed a larger increase than their non-first-generation peers. In addition, this figure shows the percentage point increase in the college going rate from the class of 2022 to the class of 2023 by the share of students from underserved racial or ethnic groups at the schools they attended. These groups include Black, Latino, Native American, and Pacific Islander students. We found that students from schools where more than half of students were from underserved racial or ethnic groups, showing orange in the figure, experienced a larger increase in college enrollment than those from schools with fewer such students, showing dark blue. Similarly, students from schools where more than half of students were eligible for free or reduced price meals, which is an indicator of economic disadvantage, saw a greater increase in the college going rate than students from schools with lower shares of eligible students. Together, these findings suggest that historically underserved students in higher education experienced a greater increase in college enrollment and aid access in the first year of the policy. Moving forward, we found that college choice patterns remained mostly unchanged following the policy, with most students continuing to enroll in California's public higher education systems. We observed a small but notable increase from 91% to 93% in the share attending in-state public institutions. This modest shift suggests a growing preference for in-state public options, potentially driven by more favorable aid packages, lower costs, and increased awareness of affordability at these institutions. When looking more closely at California's public higher education systems, one possible factor limiting changes in students' college choices is eligibility and academic preparation. We found that the median GPA for Cal Grant recipients at community colleges is below the GPA cutoff for freshman admissions to UC, and many of these recipients are also below the cutoff for CSU. Looking at students who enrolled in in-state public institutions after high school graduation, we found that FAFSA completion rates rose across all systems, with the largest increase occurring at the community colleges. As this figure shows, in the first year of the policy, the share of college enrollees with a completed FAFSA increased by 8 percentage points at community colleges, compared to 6 percentage points at both CSU and UC. However, despite this growth, the FAFSA completion rate at community colleges still lags behind those of CSU and UC. Based on our research, we offer the following recommendations. First, our findings suggest that California's universal financial aid application policy is a promising way to boost both college enrollment and financial aid uptake, especially among historically underserved students. However, many students still lack important information about the aids they qualify for or how to navigate college costs, often because they haven't completed a financial aid application. We need continued efforts to further encourage application completions, along with targeted strategies to address the specific barriers different students face. Second, a linked and coordinated data system could reduce the need for repetitive data matching, lower administrative costs, and enhance the state's ability to track long-term trends. Such a system would also improve the evaluation of policies like the universal financial aid application requirement and provide timely and actionable data to schools. Finally, financial aid alone is not enough to ensure all students can successfully go to college. Many face non-financial obstacles that make the transition difficult. Strengthening academic advising, expanding college and career counseling, and guiding students through the college application and enrollment process can help them navigate these challenges and fully use the financial aid available to them. Looking ahead, we plan to continue research on this policy to track its impact over a longer period of time and examine longer-term outcomes such as college persistence, transfer, and degree attainment. We also aim to better understand how students use the aids they are eligible for and identify the barriers they face in accessing it to help more students reach their higher education goals. With that, I conclude the presentation of today. Just a reminder, please submit your question to ppiceventquestions@gmail.com. And at this time, I would like to go ahead and answer questions from our audience. The first question has come in. This is from a policy analyst in the Bay Area. The question is, can the improvements seen in the data be attributed to factors other than the universal financial aid application policy? Yeah, thanks for the question. And this is a really important point. Yes, the improvements we saw in the data, especially in those pre-post policy comparisons, could certainly reflect more than just the effects of the universal financial aid application policy. For example, we know that this period overlaps with post-COVID recovery, and there may be other statewide efforts and initiatives to expand financial aid eligibility or strengthen college readiness and enrollment that could also contribute to the changes we observe. And that's why, beyond simply comparing data before and after the policy, we also used a causal framework called a dosage difference in difference model to better isolate the impact of the policy itself. So this approach takes advantage of variation across schools in their FAFSA completion rate before the policy. And the underlying idea is that if completing the FAFSA increases a student's likelihood of going to college, then schools that saw the biggest increases in FAFSA completion as a result of the policy, which are often those schools that started from a lower baseline, should also see the largest gains in college enrollment. So by comparing how enrollment trends changed after the policy between schools with initially low versus high FAFSA completion rates, we can estimate the overall effect of the policy. We also included a range of controls to account for factors such as statewide changes and school-specific characteristics that could have influenced college enrollment during this period. And using this model, we estimate that the policy contributed to roughly 1,500 students enrolling in college statewide equivalent to a 0.3 percentage point increase in the overall college-going rate. So unless there are factors not controlled by us that are changing at the same time as this policy, and we're also related to both baseline FAFSA completion rate and college enrollment, this result can be interpreted as causal. In other words, this analysis indicates that this policy itself had a statistically significant positive impact on college enrollment. I hope this answers your question. Moving on to our second question, which is from a researcher in LA. The increase in the college enrollment from your results seems quite small compared to the size of the high school population or the overall college-going rate in California. Do you think your results suggest that the policy meaningfully improved college enrollment? I appreciate this question, and it's true. The effect size we estimated is not large in absolute terms, especially compared to the size of the high school population or the overall college-going rate in California. At the same time, the effect is positive and statistically significant, which is important. Please note that these estimates reflect only the first year of the policy's implementation, so it's possible that the impact could grow over time as the policy becomes more established and awareness among students and schools increases. Also, it is encouraging to see that historically underserved students experienced greater increases in FAFSA completion and college enrollment, which suggests that the policy may be helping to close gaps and provide more equitable access to higher education opportunities. We may also get some perspective by looking at how similar policies have worked in other states. For example, a study applying a similar causal model estimated that in Louisiana, the mandatory FAFSA policy led to a 1 to 2 percentage point increase in college enrollment, which is slightly larger in percentage points terms than what we found in California. One key difference is that Louisiana's policy was tied to a high school graduation requirement, while California's policy is not. And this distinction may help explain differences in the effectiveness of the policy and may have implications for how we think about the potential reach of the policy. So overall, our results suggest that the universal financial aid application policy in California, it's a promising strategy for increasing both college enrollment and access to financial aid. At the same time, future research that can track the policy over a longer period and examine longer-term outcomes, including how many students actually use the aids they qualify for and the barriers they encounter, will be important for understanding the policy's full impact and identifying ways to help even more students succeed in college. All right, our next question comes from Justin in Sacramento. He asks, college is not for everyone. Are you concerned that making everyone complete the FAFSA might lead students to take out debt while enrolling in the program that they are not ready for? This is a really important question, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I agree that college may not be the best path for everyone. The goal of the universal financial aid application policy is not to push every student into college. It is to make sure that all students have the information they need to make an informed decision about their future. So completing a financial aid application does not commit a student to enrolling in college. What it does is to help them understand what options are available to them and what those options actually cost. Right now, many students and families see the sticker price of college, that is the published tuition and associated costs, and just assume it is out of their reach. But the reality is that most students, especially those from low-income students, pay much less than the sticker price because of grant aid. And grant aid is not student debt. That is money students do not need to pay back in the future. So completing FAFSA or CADA, by completing FAFSA or CADA, students can see how much grant aid they qualify for and get a more accurate sense of the true cost of college. The policy, again, is not about requiring college attendance. It's about making sure that students who want to go to college and are ready for it do not miss out the financial support that is already available to them. And without this step, too many students leave money on the table simply because they never applied. The policy is about expanding opportunity and transparency, not about steering anyone toward a particular path. I hope this addresses the concern. And our next question is from Kelly in Oakland. It seems that though more students received information about what financial aid they could receive, it didn't have much impact on their college choice. Why do you think that we didn't see more students enrolling in four-year colleges? Thanks for the question. And you're absolutely right that even though more students are now aware of the financial aid available to them, we didn't see a large shift in where they decided to enroll, particularly in terms of four-year colleges. Financial aid it's a really important piece of this puzzle, but it's not the only barrier students face. As I mentioned in the presentation, eligibility and academic preparation also play a big role in shaping students' choices. For example, we see in our data that many Cal Grant recipients who enrolled in community colleges have GPAs below the freshman admission cutoff for UC or CSU. That suggests that even with financial aid, some students may not yet meet the academic requirements to directly enroll in a four-year university. And beyond academics, students face a range of other non-financial barriers that can make attending a four-year college more difficult. Things like living far from a university campus, limited access to college counseling, uncertainty about college enrollment process, or family and work responsibilities that make it harder for them to move away from home. And these factors are all well documented in other research and remind us that increasing financial aid awareness alone is not enough. It needs to be complemented with efforts to address these non-financial barriers. That said, I wanted to know that when we combine the shares of students enrolling in community colleges, CSU, and UC, we did see that students were slightly more likely to enroll in these in-state public colleges after the policy went into effect. That likely reflects a better understanding of how much more affordable California's public colleges are once federal and state aid are taken into account. So while the policy may not have dramatically changed where students enroll, it does seem to have influenced how they think about affordability and their college options overall. And our last question comes from Aaron in Los Angeles. It appears that much of the gains from this policy were concentrated at the community college system as far as enrollment growth and more students enrolling with access to financial aid. Do you think that this could help improve student outcomes at the community college systems? First, I want to clarify that we actually saw gains across sectors, not just at the community colleges. So for example, we saw that the share of college enrollees who were eligible for Pell Grants and received Pell Grants increased across all sectors, including community colleges, CSU, UC, in-state privates, and even out-of-state institutions where our students enrolled. That said, the gains were particularly notable at the community colleges. So could that help improve student outcomes at the community colleges? Potentially, yes. Previous research has consistently shown that when students have greater access to financial aid, they are able to take on a larger course load and work fewer hours, which in turn can lead to faster progress toward a degree and higher degree completion rates. And this is especially relevant for community colleges where a significant share of students are enrolled part-time, and additional financial support could help more students attend full-time or stay continuously enrolled, both of which are strong predictors of success. And with that, we've reached the end of our program. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. I would also like to thank our funders, the Gates Foundation and the Evelyn and Walter Hartz Jr. Fund for their generous support of this work. We would appreciate you taking a moment to give us your feedback on this event. If you pre-registered for this event, you will receive an email later today with a link to a short survey, but you can also scan the QR code on your screen right now. Finally, a recording of today's event will be available on the PPIC website and on YouTube channel soon, so you can watch it again or share it with your network. Thank you and have a good afternoon.